The Penicillin is one of the most popular modern classic cocktails, and if you've never tried it before, you really do need to fix that. Today I'm going to show you a really easy version of the drink, which has become my go-to recipe. So without further ado, let's make a Penicillin. So the Penicillin. This drink was created in 2005 by Sam Ross, who's probably one of the most influential bartenders of our times. He's created some modern classic cocktails, including the Paper Plane, the Left Hand, and then this, the Penicillin, which might be his most popular creation. Sam created this drink while he was working at Milk and Honey in New York City, and the drink itself, the Penicillin, is actually a riff on another of Sam's drinks called the Gold Rush, which contains bourbon, lemon juice and honey. So the Penicillin makes a few changes to that recipe and really kind of freshens it up and brings new levels of complexity. So rather than using bourbon, we're going to go with a blended Scotch whisky. I'm going with Monkey Shoulder. We're going to go with lemon juice, which will be our acidity of choice. And then Sam actually makes a homemade ginger and honey syrup, which I'm going to forego today because I don't want it to become too complex. So I've got two ingredients which go in here, which not only bring the kind of similar flavor profile, but also they're zero prep. So first of all, we're going to go from the syrup in stem ginger and syrup. And this is really kind of vibrant and fresh and quite spicy and zingy, as you know with ginger to be. And then rather than using honey, I'm going to go with agave nectar, just because it's more vegan friendly, so hopefully more people can try this drink. It also brings a similar flavor profile and viscosity to honey, so it's a really good substitute. But if you prefer to use honey, definitely go for that. I'll just bring it down with a little bit of water, so 2 parts honey to 1 part water. I like to add a little bit of saline solution to this, just to bring all those big flavors together. So 1 part salt to 5 parts water. And then the final ingredient is going to be a big old peaty Scotch whiskey with really kind of intense smoky flavors, which don't be alarmed by, it doesn't overpower the drink. It actually brings so much more depth and complexity to the drink as an aroma in the drink, either floated on top, or I like to add it to a little aromatizer like this, which you can spritz on top of the drink. So I'm going to add that in here now. So now that's ready to go, we can start building the drink. And this is going to be a shaken cocktail because it contains citrus, starting with 60 ml of blended Scotch whisky. And this is a little bit less toffee forward often than a bourbon, although you get a massive variation in flavour in Scotch whisky. I find the Monkey Shoulder to be a really good base here, but experiment with whatever you have. This drink would also work really nicely with bourbon or rye, so whichever whisky you choose is still going to be delicious, it's just going to slightly change the flavour profile. So 60 ml of our blended Scotch, and then we're going to go 30 ml of freshly squeezed lemon juice. And if we think back to a few of our episodes in this course, we're going to follow that same 4-part spirit, 2-part citrus, 1-part sweetener ratio, which gives really nice balance in many different drinks, including this one. So now I've got our 4 parts of spirit, or 60 ml, 2 parts of our citrus, or 30 ml. We're going to add 1 part of sweetener, but I actually like to mix this up slightly and do this in grams on scales, just because it's a little bit easier to control. So we're going to look for 15 grams in total, and because Sam's original recipe was a homemade ginger and honey syrup, I'm going to be using 2 ingredients. The first 7.5 grams being the syrup from our stem ginger and syrup, and this is really kind of fresh and zingy, and using a bar spoon is probably the easiest way to measure this. And definitely do use scales for this, so you can easily control and consistently control the amount of sweetness in the drink. I'm also adding 7.5 grams of our agave nectar, or our 2-to-1 honey syrup if you prefer, totaling 15 grams in total, to bring through our 4 to 2-to-1 ratio, which is a really tried and tested recipe. So now we've got our key ingredients, we've got our spirit, our acidity and our sweetener. We're going to add a little seasoning to the drink. And because these are quite big flavors and they're kind of sweet and sour, we don't want them to be really kind of wide and apart. We want to kind of bring them together. So you get that really nice combination of the whiskey, lemon, honey, ginger, or agave if you're using that. Kind of similar to a hot toddy. That doesn't want to be a sweet and sour drink. I don't think this needs to be a sweet and sour drink either. I think the whiskey should be the kind of key characteristic, with the other flavors kind of working around it to really elevate the whole drink. So in order to do this, I like to add around about 0.5 grams of our saline solution, which won't make the drink taste like salt. It will just bring all those big flavors together. And then particularly when you add the peaty whiskey later, I think this really kind of combines everything really beautifully. I'm going to shake this over lots of ice to chill it, mix it and dilute it. Fine strain over ice into a chilled rocks glass. And then the garnish is going to be a little bit of a crystallized ginger, which is a nice snack as well. So that's a delicious drink, but actually it's not quite finished here. So you've got 2 options here. Number 1, you can either very carefully layer a little bit of peaty whiskey on top of the drink, but my preferred method is actually to serve the drink with a little spritzer like this, which you can keep adding to the top of the drink. So every time you take a sip, you get that really nice smoky peaty aroma. So with each sip, just give it a couple of little spritzers of your peaty aroma. Take a small sip, and as you bring it to your mouth, don't use a straw. You get that really nice peat smoke on the nose. But then the drink's much more smooth. It's got that blended scotch at its base, which is much less smoky. And each time, top it up. Have a sip. And there you have a really delicious drink, kind of similar to a whiskey sour in many ways, with different layers of complexity added from the ginger, the agave or honey if you use that, and then the smoky whiskey. And it's called a Penicillin. Enjoy.